Hello and welcome back, everyone. At Sanctuaries of Learning, we believe that great teaching doesn't just deliver content, it builds bridges. In secondary schools, scaffolding is one of the most powerful ways to build those bridges between students and success, between challenge and support. This year, Katoomba High School was named one of the top 25 highest growth schools in the HSC over recent years, which is a testament to the deep thinking and dedication of their staff to student growth. In this issue, we're exploring how scaffolding can be used not just to support, but to differentiate meaningfully in secondary classrooms. Firstly, we are welcoming back Dr. Barbara Blackburn, who obviously loves us. She's come back. We all know she's a renowned author, speaker, consultant with a background in secondary education and a passion for student success. She's written over 30 books on teaching and leadership, and her most recent book, Scaffolding for Success, Helping Learners Meet Rigorous Expectations Across the Curriculum, is a super practical guide for teachers looking to raise the bar without leaving students behind. We have Tess Devine, the principal of Katoomba High School, who has worked in public education for over 22 years across Western Sydney and the Central West. With a teaching background in maths and VET business services, Tess has held a range of leadership roles, including head teacher, teaching and learning, and deputy principal. She holds a master's degree in educational leadership and commerce. Brad McLeod is the deputy principal of Stage 6, Skills and Pathways at Katoomba High School. A proud product of public education, Brad has worked in diverse settings, including rural and remote schools, and was recognised in 2009 as the youngest lead teacher in Victoria. His leadership experience spans teaching and learning, curriculum, wellbeing, creative arts, and school administration. Andrew Finlay is currently the relieving deputy principal and substantive head teacher HISI at Katoomba High School. He chairs the school's writing team and is also a textbook author with Cambridge University Press. Before becoming a teacher, Andrew worked as a historian and public programming manager in museums and art organisations across New South Wales and Singapore. And he's currently completing a law degree, which is very cool.
Scaffolding is a really complex way of supporting students so they can learn at their best. And that can be teaching them strategies that they can use when they get stuck on their own. It might mean that we come alongside them and help them when they get stuck. It might mean that I provide resources so that if they need additional help, then they take advantage of it. But it's really going back to that notion of looking at how to support students so that they can learn at their best.
A much stronger growth mindset now, and also the embedding of high expectations throughout the school in learning. So I think Brad touched on it before that we were definitely a strong wellbeing school, and wellbeing obviously underpins learning, but we needed to really promote and signal that this is a place of teaching and learning, and that we have high expectations with high support. And those two things are sort of something we've been talking about a lot lately.
We've been talking a bit lately about consistency of message and the importance of saying the same thing regularly and building some umbrellas under which we do everything, because the department comes out with a million things every year that they want us to do, and we hear these great things. We want to just have a few key areas that we're focusing on, and whatever we're doing, we make sure it's aligning to one of those three key areas. And if it's not, we don't do it. And we kind of sell it to staff or explain it to staff that it's not something extra, it's part of this.
Teachers, graphic organizers help, because what they do for students is they help them organize information and they help them plug it into the right place so that they can use it. So if I'm doing a high school writing piece and I want students to be able to have a thesis and then have 3 pieces of evidence to back it up. And for each piece of evidence, I want specific sources, both within the text and from outside the text. If I put that in a grid, then there are some of my students that will do well that might not have otherwise. There are some who don't need it, and that's okay. You don't have to use it with everybody, but there are some who just need to visually see exactly what they are doing. And, I can scaffold it that way. And what I can also do is say to one of my students, if Drew comes to me and is just totally overwhelmed and just can't do it, I'm going to cover up 2 of the pieces of evidence and just leave one and say, Drew, all I want you to do is one piece of evidence, and then the support that goes with that. And that's all I want you to do. And when you do that, I want you to come back. And then when he comes back, I uncover up point 2, and we just do number 2. And so it's not that I'm going to lower my expectations. In fact, I'm going to have the high expectations, but I'm going to really differentiate how I provide that support. Another one I really love is a tool called a Guiderama. I absolutely love it. The only thing is it takes a little bit of time. So I tell people that's not the first one to go to. But what it is that whether you've got students who are reading text that is too challenging, or they're having to watch a video and they don't know what to pay attention to, you give them a mix of a study guide and a think aloud. So it's things like if you're doing a video at 0 seconds, one of the things I do before I start is write down what I know. That way I can connect it to what I see later. 55 seconds. This really seems confusing. Did you know the ratio sometimes looks like a fraction? What is that about? What do you need to pay attention to see how that works?
The origin. So when we sort of had our light bulb moment around needing to build in some of that academic rigor and success in the platforms, you're talking about student support on learning some of those basic skills. We realized, like we explicitly teach writing, like we explicitly teach numeracy, we realized our kids lacked fundamental skills on how to learn effectively. So we initiated a study skills program, initially targeting year 10, that we would explicitly teach them things like retrieval practices, goal setting, how to battle procrastination. We did a lot of work on time management, organization.
I need a bit of help with this myself.
These things you take for granted. You think kids understand these, but they don't. They really need to be walked through and guided with this stuff. And in that course, which all year 10s are exposed to, we do a lot around achievement motivation. We do tap in a little bit around personal environment, their own well-being, the psychology of learning and motivation. But the very practical supports, we do things like effective note-taking, how to summarize effectively, research effectively, revision, learning logs, and we do a lot around spaced practice versus chunking. Some very practical supports that we provide kids is how to use flashcards with their retrieval practices, brain dumps, mind maps, graphic organizers like Barbara was talking about. All those skills that kids now, we go up into our senior study hub now, which is flourishing, by the way, and it's so amazing to see kids up there using their flashcards effectively, kids in little study groups self-quizzing and peer coaching. It really warms the heart to see that the work that we've been doing now for about 4 years is now embedded in the culture. What we do in study skills, we tap into what kids are doing in all of their other subjects. So, for example, flashcards at the moment, year 10 are working hard on chemistry, getting ready for a chemistry exam, mid-year exam. So the strategies we teach in study skills, we directly apply to what they're learning there and then in their other subjects.
So what we really did was to try to work out as educators, there's lots of different methods to writing, but they're all kind of talking about the same thing generally, it's just different language. And that's actually one of the issues with teaching of writing is that if everybody, and what we noticed was there's lots of amazing work being done in individual classrooms, and teachers had identified that they hadn't had a lot of initial teacher education, but they'd kind of worked it out themselves and chosen a bit of a method or a way to teach students. But that meant that in every classroom, people were teaching the same thing, but with different language, with different sort of methods and steps. And so what we needed to do was to have a discussion around, as a school, what sort of approach do we want to take? And there are differences across subjects, which we celebrate and identify, but we're also able to find commonalities. And so now we have that consistency to reduce that cognitive load for our students when they move between HISI and English and PE, for example. They can understand that I might be using slightly different language, and I'm using it for a reason. So we identify that I need to use slightly different language, but it fits in the same space as what's happening in English when we talk about the introduction to a persuasive essay or a body paragraph. And where are those similarities and where are those differences? And so that was sort of the starting place to try and get systems and processes that are school-wide, to take it out of individual classrooms to a school-wide approach. While sometimes we even have disagreements amongst ourselves about writing and how it should be done, there's a really good conversations, but everyone's talking about writing. Students are talking about writing. You're hearing them speak back to you in the language and asking questions. So if this is what I'm hearing in this subject, is what you're talking about the same thing? And people are discussing writings. They're talking about conjunctions, right? We're having conversations where kids are just raising, subordinating phrases. It's a beautiful thing. But you have to teach that explicitly. It's not something that you just pick up naturally. You have to teach the conventions of writing explicitly, step by step, with scaffolding. And we identified 5 or 6 high impact strategies that we determined. You can't do everything, and Tess picked up on that when she was speaking earlier. You can't do everything. It becomes overwhelming for staff and for students. And so we identified high impact strategies, things like fixing fragmented sentences, run-on sentences, expanding sentences, using conjunctions like because, but, and so, as well as note-making using question words. And we've done a lot of work on PL with the staff and embedding those into classrooms. And then overlaying all of that is our new writing team, with sort of dedicated staff who are passionate about writing. These are our lead writers. So we get together 3 times a term to discuss writing, to reflect, and to build these resources for staff, to create a vision for where we want to go, to map out writing in our different subjects. That's one of the key things we identified, that those differences were placing barriers to students to learning, because one subject does it different to others. But there are far more things we have in common across our different subjects in high school than there are differences. And we celebrate differences, we identify them, but we're able to see where they line up with each other for consistency.
And the fact that you got teachers on board and really got the ownership and the buy-in for it, I think those were the big things that I saw. One of the things that I might encourage you to do, just as you continue, because it's my favorite leadership activity, so I always like to share it, is an activity called Name It, Claim It, and Explain It. And what you do is, when you're seeing a teacher doing something well, you take a snapshot or take a short video, whatever you want to do. And the next time you've got a meeting, you throw it up on the screen and you tell the teacher that you're going to do this. So don't blindside them a little bit, to make sure you tell them. And you say, whoever this belongs to, this is an example of best practice. This is what we're doing right, and this is what we're going to continue to do. So whoever it belongs to, I want you to name it, claim it, and explain it to the rest of us. And the best way to look at it is by observing what the students are doing. Did they learn? Were they able to achieve at a higher level? Were they able to complete the assignment? So I like the just observing. Now, it's also important to look at how they scored on whatever you had them do. So that quantitative data is important. Were they able to get a 94? Were they able to get a B? Whatever. But I think you watch your students. You watch them and say, is this working? Is this not working? Do they understand what they're using? Can they use it in a new setting on their own? So I think you've got a qualitative and a quantitative approach. But again, I would go back to, if the work is not rigorous, the scaffolding isn't going to get them there.
So congratulations to Katoomba High School. You should be incredibly proud of your efforts over the past couple of years. You know, there's a lot that I'm sure schools will be able to take from your journey. And Barbara, thank you for your being so generous with your time again. I don't know what time it is, but I'm sure it's not a great time for you right now. And thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for being part of this community.